Don't settle for somebody who's not going to be good to you. Don't settle for someone who's going to put their hands on you. Don't settle for someone who's going to run all over you and treat you like you're dirt. No, you don't deserve that. Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go. Yo, what's good, everybody? This is your boy Lorelco Mulzac, and I'm so glad that you're listening to the Socially Awkward podcast, bringing to you another episode. I'm so glad you guys are here, man. Today's been interesting. This week has been really good for the most part. I think something that I've learned this week is patience. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of components moving at the same time. Right now I'm in this phase or in this season where I want to do so much. I was talking to a friend. I had lunch with one of my guys, man, and we were talking about like timing. And I was like, I feel like this is the time for me. I feel like this is my season to go like do crazy stuff, like just to go wow. You know what I mean? Like to make an impact. This is my season. I have to do this. I have to do that. And so I'm making plans, but it feels forced. It feels so. I mean, we were just talking about. I was just opening up, being transparent. Saying, man, I feel like this isn't my time because it's forced, even though I want it to be my time. Like I want to grow and develop in this area, and I want to do all these different things, and I want to, just create impact in my community, and I just want to do so much, and it feels forced. And I was like, I guess right now I'm at a place where even though I want to do so many different things, I feel like it's just not the right time. I'm asking God, when will it be the time for me? When will it be the right time where I feel like I'm flowing in what you want me to do? I'm flowing in the vision that you've given me, because we all have visions. We all have things that God has given us. It's all about implementation. It's all about execution, planning, preparation, strategy, and time. And those are the main. Time is the main component, because one thing we don't want to do is wait. We don't like to wait, especially when we see the vision that God has given us and we're like, okay, God, this is it. This is the vision that you have for me. Why do I need to wait for it? You've given me the vision. Why am I waiting? Like, might as well just do this thing. If you see that I'm about to blow up in this business, okay, cool. God, I see that. I know what I need to do. Let's make this thing happen. We don't want to wait. We don't want to waste time. And this is kind of the culture that we live in. We want to do things and we want it fast. We want it now. Fast money, fast cash, fast food. You know what I'm saying? Everything is fast. And so when God gives us a vision, we assume that because he gave us the vision, that it's supposed to come to pass immediately, because he gave us the dream. He gave us the vision. That's not usually how God works. God gives us the vision, and then he prepares us for the vision, right? He gives us an idea that we're going to have a child, and then years down the line, sometimes it happens years down the line. Sometimes it happens immediately. But what I've seen in the scripture, there's usually a timestamp attached to the vision. Usually he gives you a vision, but there's a timestamp, right? Now we got to wait for it. Now we got to prepare for it. Now we have to learn how to strategize for this vision. How does this vision take place? And we don't want to do all that. We don't want to make the preparations for all that. It's just like God telling me I'm going to have a child. And I asked God, okay, God, I thought it would just be easy for us to have kids. And if you know about my story, my wife and our story, we've dealt with infertility for a very, very long time, to the point where the doctors were like, there ain't no way y'all gonna have kids. My wife is young at the time. She was, 24, something like that, 24 years old, 25. And they were like, her eggs are at age 36 and getting older. So how do you have old eggs when you're 24? You know what I mean? And they're saying that it's not going to be possible for you to have kids. Maybe you can have them through IVF. Maybe that there's a slim chance because your tubes are blocked. And then you have, I think there's endometriosis. Then you have polyps. And you have all. So they kept telling all of these different things that's wrong, right? Nothing right. Everything was wrong. And we were like, man, so what do we do? Well, God told us to do IVF, so we did IVF, and God blessed us with now 3 beautiful children. But that took a long time. You know what I'm saying? Like, that took a long time. God gave me the vision I was going to have 3 to 4 kids. But I didn't think it was going to be through the way that he presented it for us to go through. Like, I didn't think it was going to be through that way. He told me I was going to have kids, but I didn't know that it was going to be so hard for us to have children. I had no clue. It didn't even register. I'm like, well, My wife's mom has like 5 kids. Okay, well, that makes sense. Babe should be good. I had my mom, she just popped out with kids. I should be good. My dad, everything was fine. But when it comes to us, it wasn't fine. So I had to challenge God on that. I said, well, God, like, how does that work? How do you give me a vision and then I got to work for it? And too many times God gives us visions that we don't want to work for. We just want it to be handed to us. We want those visions. We want it now. We want God to prepare it and stir it up and cook it, prepare the plate, do all that, and we just sit down and eat. God's like, no, I gave you the vision so that you can work for the vision. I didn't give you the vision so that I could just give it to you and you could just eat off of it. You got to work for that thing. And oftentimes we don't want to work, man. We don't want to put in work for a vision. And so I'm at this place in my life where I'm asking God, okay, God, when is it the right time? So there's this timestamp. I'm like, I have a timestamp. God, I'm 33. I got to be, you know what I'm saying? I should be in another place. I know exactly where I should be. But there's so many different things holding me back from doing those things right now. And so I'm in a season of serve. Like, I have to serve now. And I have to put others regarding my family before my own needs at this moment. There's going to be a time where, my needs will come first. But at this very present time and very moment, I feel like it's time for me to serve. Because me pushing myself to the forefront to do whatever I want to do, it's being forced. And anything that's being forced, I feel is not God. Because God is a flow God. God flows, man. When things are moving the way it's supposed to move, if you've noticed it, when God is in something, it flows. Everything flows. Like, things happen that are out of your control, and you're just like, how did that happen? Oh, that just flowed right on there. God is a flow God. He's not a God that forces things. He doesn't need to force anything, because if he forces it, it sounds rushed in. If it's a force, then it's a rush. And God is not a rush God. He does things on time. And so what I've learned, man, is like, if it's forced, I don't think it's God if it's forced, because God is a flow God. And he does things on time, and he does things decently and in order. So anytime you feel stuck in trying to figure out why is this piece not fitting in the puzzle? Why are you trying? Why does it feel forced? Well, it ain't God. You may need to wait. You may need to reevaluate the map, reevaluate the puzzle, and just take your hands off of it for a minute. And allow God to do what he needs to do. If you got to work some more, work. If you got to prepare some more, then prepare. If you have to strategize some more, get back to strategy. So that it can flow. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes God wants to get you right. He wants to get your private life together. And that's a big thing that we want to be. So a lot of us want to get to the forefront. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We have all these visions and goals. We want to make impact, but our private life is trash. How do we make impact when our life inwardly, when our private life is trash? How does God push us to another level and create this platform for us when we're not even living the life that we're called to at home? How does that work? How will God elevate me when I'm not elevating him in my own home? And that's a big problem for a lot of us, is that, man, I feel like I should be so much further. But God's like, I'm trying to work on your private life, man. I'm trying to get your private life together. I'm trying to make sure that when you go out there that you are integral. I'm trying to make sure that when you go out there and I present you to thousands, or present you to millions, or present you to 5 to hundreds, that your name would be great. The Bible says that a great name is better than great riches. I want your name to be great, and I want to be represented through you. And too many times we want the representation to be us, our name. And God says, no, man, I need to get the glory out of this. God needs to get the glory out of the glory that he gives to you. You get what I'm saying? And so too often we want to do all this public, I want to have all this public success. And, we negate the private success. We negate what it takes to live an integral life in private, to live a life that is pleasing to God. We want all this stuff, man, and we're not treating our family right. We're not treating our wives right. We cheating on our wives, and we, neglecting our kids, and we're not stewarding our money well. We're doing all these different things in private, and we want all this public success, and it just doesn't add up. And you're wondering why things are forced. Again, God is a flow God. God flows. And if not flowing inwardly, if not flowing in your own home, don't expect to be flowing out in the public. I suggest you wait, get yourself together, and then allow God to push you where He needs to push you, wherever you need to go, whatever the vision that God gave you, however that's going to be executed in your life. So remember that, man, God is a flow God, bro. And so I wanted to talk about, too, standards. Um, in my life now, I've learned about boundaries and I've learned about standards. And there are some people that ask me, how do you not settle, and how do you set a standard, right? What's the standard in my life like? And I remember when I think about standards, I remember when I was single and I was talking to my boys. I said, man, I got standards, man. I can't just be hollering at anybody. When I was, looking for a woman, looking for a wife to marry, everybody always assumed that that I was husband material. I was always a guy that was looking for the wife, and it was true. I didn't want them to say it, but it was true. I was always looking for a wife to marry. I wasn't trying to play games. I wasn't trying to do all that stuff, even though I did here and there. But ultimately, I wasn't trying to be connected unless I viewed you as my wife, and so I had standards. I didn't settle. And I remember talking to my boys at the time. I was like, hey, man, this is what I want. I want this type of woman. I want her to be this way. I want her to have, some spunk to her. I want her to be her own woman. I want her to be loving, Christ loving. I want her to love God. I want her to love me. I want her to love herself. I need a confident woman. I need a graceful. I just went through. I had this list that, I just had this list of what a wife looked like for me, and physically and emotionally and spiritually. So I didn't just have. I had. Mike Todd talks about rip up your list. Listen, I had a list. All right, I asked God what I wanted. I knew what I wanted. And I said, God, this is for me. The Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing." That means he has to know what he's looking for. You can't. God will give you the desires of your heart. If you're connected to Him, you'll know what you need, right? Automatically, it's automatic. You'll know what you need. But he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And in order for him to find something, he has to know what to find. And that's, for me, I knew what I needed. I knew at the time that I needed a specific type of woman because I knew I was a specific type of man. I can't just be laying with anybody. And I think that's the problem with a lot of men, is that because they don't value themselves, they lay with anybody. They lay with any woman they see because they don't value themselves. They don't value their body. They don't value their mind. The reason why men cheat is because they don't value themselves. How are they going to value you if they don't value themselves? Listen, a man who's committed is a man who's disciplined. A man who is disciplined is a man who gets respect, who earns respect. And a lot of times we lose respect in the man because of their lack of discipline. And usually the lack of discipline in a man is because they don't hold themselves to a certain standard. They don't hold themselves to a certain way of living, a certain mindset. Why? Maybe it's because of past. Maybe it's because they have trauma. Maybe because there's some things in their life that they're holding on to instead of letting go. And there's a lot of fear attached to men who aren't disciplined and men who do not value themselves. And so it's hard for them to have something in their hand to value when they don't value themselves. And so for women who are interested in men who for some reason ends up cheating on them, you have to ask yourself as the woman, well, why did it not why did he cheat on me? Why did he cheat on himself, and why doesn't he value himself? Because a man who cheats on a woman cheats on himself. He cheats on himself. He doesn't understand the value of holding a commitment, the value of discipline, the value of worth, right? He doesn't understand that. And because he doesn't understand it, he'll always have a problem with commitment until he learns how to value himself. Men cheating is, I'm telling you, it's an inward thing. People think it's a rush. It's not a rush. Cheating on a woman is not a rush. It's just a man who's undisciplined, who lacks self-confidence, who is insecure. There's no reason for a man to cheat. There's no reason in the world for a man to make a commitment and then draw his commitment back. That's a liar. It's a man who's not integral. And so we have to watch out for the signs, because the signs are there before. Oh, he was such a sweet guy. And the signs are always there. You can always tell if a guy's a cheater or not. Yo, ladies, let me put you up on game. This is how you know if a man is a cheater or if a man is non-integral, if he talks too much. If a man is just, if that's all he does is talking, he's doing all this talking about what he's finna do, what he gonna do, what he's doing all this, he's doing all that, and he's just doing all this talking, just talking. You just beware. because a man who talks too much, it means he doesn't listen. And so you got to be very careful for the guys. I was just on. This is just one nugget. Be careful for the men who do a lot of talking, who talk all the time. And this goes with setting standards for yourself, because too often we ignore the red flags, we ignore the signs that a person is not a good person for us, simply because we're lonely and because we haven't set a standard or a boundary within ourselves. And we settle. We settle for the bad because we feel like maybe this is all I'm worth. This is all that's given or presented to me. So I might as well just hold on to it because I have nothing else to hold on to. And there's the fear of being alone. And so with the fear of being alone, it diminishes the standard. We neglect the boundary. Why? Because we're alone. We don't want to feel alone. We don't want to be by ourselves. Because most times we're not happy with ourselves. So we'd rather mask that unhappiness with ourselves with being with someone else. And we give our time and our efforts to someone else instead of to us. And that's one of the issues that we have in regards to setting standards and setting a boundary for ourselves, what we can and what we will not allow in our life. We have to know who we are. We have to value ourselves. We have to learn commitment outside of a relationship. Like, what else are we committed to that has nothing to do with the opposite sex? What are we committed to? What are we going to vow to? That's going to show others that we can indeed be committed. Some people, it's fitness. For all, I hope it's God. Am I committed to God? Am I committed to having a relationship with him? I'm not talking about standards in regards to laws. Am I committed to his laws? Am I committed to him? Am I committed to having a personal relationship with God, a spiritual connection with God? Once I see that, I saw my wife and she was connected with God. She had a spiritual connection. I'm like, okay, cool. I can see the integrity in her because of her commitment. Because she was committed to certain things in her life. And she's like, I remember our first conversation. She said, look, I ain't trying to play games. I ain't trying to be in a relationship. I'm trying to get my life right with God. That's who I'm committed to right now. I was like, I like that. Tell me more. I like that. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was very adamant on making sure that she was connected to him. And that was her commitment. And she wasn't going to allow me or anybody else to push her away from her commitment to God. So we got to look at what are other people, what are they committed to? What are some other things that people are committed to other than the person? Because when you start overcommitting to the individual, you become codependent. If you're not dependent on God, if you're not dependent on yourself to get things done, you become codependent. That's because you haven't worked on your own issues. But so setting boundaries and setting standards is a big thing. And I feel like a lot of people get caught up with the wrong person because they haven't set a boundary. They haven't set a standard. Like, what is your standard? What will you allow and what will you not allow in order for you to have peace and to have a healthy relationship? I think that's one thing we also have to understand is that if we do find ourselves in an unhealthy relationship or with an unhealthy person, like, we have to learn how to either move within that, meaning when I say move within it, if you want to stay, then you have to set a standard. You have to set a boundary within that relationship. You have to say, hey, I don't like that you did this, and this will not stand, right? This will not be something that will continue in our relationship, or I'm going to have to go. When you set a hard standard and when you set a hard boundary in a relationship and they do not meet that standard or that boundary, then you have that right to find something else, to let it go. Now, marriage is different, but it's the same at the same point. Like, there should always be a boundary within marriage, and there should always be someone, both parties working together to make sure each party meets that boundary, that we respect that boundary rather, and that we respect each other's standard within that relationship. Hey, listen, I don't like yelling, so please don't yell. My boundary is let's not yell, or I'm going to have to step away for a minute, get some me time because I can't do the yelling. For some people, it's, don't know how to do this, and it's just a lot of different things that men and women have within relationships that they just will not stand for. But if you don't say anything, if you don't set a boundary, well, that person is going to run all over you. That person is going to continue to do what you hate, and you're not going to grow from it. You're not going to be healthy from it. You're going to constantly live in a disruptive environment because you haven't set a boundary. It's important that we set a standard and have a standard for ourselves so that we can live healthy lives. And, it's important, man. Like, it's very important for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm worth a boundary. I'm worth having one. Because oftentimes, those who are afraid to set a boundary, they don't think they're worth having or setting. They don't think they're worth setting a boundary. They don't think that they're good enough. So they allow whatever to enter in. They allow whatever to control them. They allow whatever into their environment because they don't feel that they're good enough. They don't feel that they have enough power or that they can be seen as a person of respect. They don't respect themselves. So we have to focus on us first, trying to figure out why in the world is it hard for me to set a boundary? Why is it hard for me to set a standard? Yeah, so stop settling. Have a boundary. Set that standard for yourself. If you have to make a list, make a list. That way you can keep yourself grounded. That way you can keep yourself above water. And you're not allowing just anything to come into your life. Yeah, and so in my life personally, I feel it's important that I set boundaries for myself, that I set boundaries for others. In my relationship, there's a boundary. Like, this is what I don't want in my relationship when it comes to, I remember early on in our relationship, we would argue or whatever, and sometimes we throw little jabs, throw low blows and here and there. And I'm like, you know what? We were young. Like, she was 20. I was 23, 24 years old. We were just throwing low jabs and, under our breath, saying it or whatever in the heat of an argument. And we had to make a hard cutoff. Like, you know what? Maybe I don't think that's healthy for us. I don't think we should be throwing low jabs. I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think we should. That doesn't create a healthy conversation, a healthy communicative method to get things done. That doesn't work for us. So let's not do that. And so we made a hard cutoff. That's our boundary. Let's not throw low jabs. Let's not do that. Let's argue in a healthy way, because I do think arguing is healthy. I do think that you have to communicate sometimes in an argument in order for you to get it out. Get it out. If you have to get it out, get it out. Don't leave that stuff in. Don't internalize those things. Yes, sometimes it's okay to argue. That shows that you have a healthy relationship, that you argue, that you actually express yourself in ways. I mean, of course, argue healthily, but you can express yourself. Hey, this is what I don't like. This is what's bothering me. This is why I feel this way. Sometimes you just have to let it out. Argue. I think couples need to argue every now and then. I think it's healthy. I honestly think that it's healthy to argue. Maybe you have to argue about your boundaries because the other one is not respecting the boundaries, so that they can hear you say, hey, this is how I feel. This is what's upsetting me. That person may not like that, or the person may agree, but at least there's some back and forth. At least you know where that other person is. And too often we are in relationships where we're too silent, we're too quiet, and we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going on internally. And it creates a monster out of a person later on in life when this person all of a sudden explodes. You're trying to figure out what happened. Why is this person so angry? Why is this person so upset? Well, they've held this stuff in for so long. They've resented you for so long, and now you're shocked and surprised that they have gone off on the deep end, or they have cheated, or there have been an affair, or they no longer care about the relationship, or they randomly ask for divorce. They haven't spoken to you about anything. You've kept your mouth quiet. You weren't vulnerable. You weren't open and transparent. And this is what I've learned about marriage and what I've learned about relationships is that you have to be open and transparent. And that openness, that vulnerability will also create tension, because what you're open with is not always going to be good stuff. It's not always going to feel happy for the other or feel good for the other person. Like, we have to understand and grow up in that and have that mature mindset. Like, the things that I feel, the things that I have to speak on, or I feel like I need to be vulnerable with, it may not feel good for the other person. My wife would tell me sometimes how she feels about me. I'm like, man, this doesn't feel good. But I'm glad she's telling me. I'm glad she's open. She feels open enough to tell me, like, yo, this is what I don't like, and this is how it's making me feel. Dang. I made you feel like that. Jeez, man, God, that don't make me feel good, but I'm glad that you told me, so I know what to work on. I don't take offense to it. Like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. Let's okay, Lorelco, let's figure out what we can do to figure that out, to make sure that doesn't happen again, to make sure that she doesn't feel that way again. Like, arguing is okay, it's healthy, but we have to get it out. And being vulnerable and open does not mean that everything has to be feel good type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything life ain't feel good. There's things that hurt in life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. There's things hurt. People can hurt us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's possible. You're not going to live this perfect marriage, this perfect life where nothing's going to harm you, nothing's going to upset you, nothing's going to disrupt your peace. It's going to happen. It's our duty to figure out how we're going to respond to when it does happen. How are we going to communicate when it does happen? And sometimes it comes through an argument. Sometimes it comes through a disagreement. It happens. It's not the end of the world, people, when it comes to arguing in a marriage. It's not the end of the world. You just have to learn how to argue in a healthy way and learn to communicate in ways that each party can understand what's happening. Each party can understand how we can grow. That's a lesson in that. Learning how to grow when tensions rise. How do you grow from that? Oh, it's a bad day. We argued. It was bad. No, did you grow? Did you learn something from it? Then it was a good day. You learn something from it. There's gonna be times she wants you to sleep on the couch because you gone off the deep end. You don't went. Well, that's healthy. That means, hey, bro, that's her boundary. Let's not do that again, my guy. Don't sleep on that couch. Get back in that bed. Make sure it don't happen again. Like, we have to understand that this is healthy. People get divorced so fast. They give up in relationships so quickly because they don't understand the basic art of argumentation. And what it is supposed to do, it's supposed to convict us. It's supposed to show us where the other person is so that we can grow from it. Yeah. That's my rant on that. But this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about helping people work through relationships and helping people understand how to set a boundary within the relationship. And even before you get to that relationship, what's the boundary within yourself? What standard are you going to set for yourself, and are you going to settle? And that's the main key. That's the question. Are you going to settle? Are you going to allow whatever to enter into your space just because you're lonely, or just because you don't feel worth it, just because you don't want to be by yourself? Those are horrible excuses to settle for somebody. Terrible excuses, because I'm by myself and I'm lonely and I've been single for so long. That means you got some work to do. Don't settle for somebody who's not going to be good to you. Don't settle for someone who's going to put their hands on you. Don't settle for someone who's going to run all over you and treat you like you're dirt. No, you don't deserve that. You have to understand what you deserve, and we understand what you're worth. When you write this stuff down and say, okay, I'm worth this, I deserve this, and once you write it down, actually see who you are and your worth, and you see your value and what you bring to the table, you're just not going to allow anybody just to come to your table talking about, hey, what up, good thing? How you doing, sweet thing? So, go and give me that number. Let me holler at you. No, you got to come to me with some respect. You got to come up to me like I'm a prized jewel. Like I'm, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have to see ourselves in that way so that we aren't settling for just anything. Yeah, so we gotta work on the settling thing. That's don't hit your tent too soon. Don't settle up too soon. You gotta know who that person is first. You gotta look at their values. I feel like it's important that the person you partner up with, that you value the same thing. That you both have the same type of beliefs. Or are you just gonna continue to butt heads? And I don't think you want to go to a relationship already butting heads. You wanna find the butt heads usually in the middle of it, where, after you've gained some momentum. You don't want to butt heads and go out, do all this fighting beforehand. It's not probably a good sign, because you're going to do way more fighting, in marriage. You want to build some momentum. I guess there are some issues that you got to work through, but you want to build momentum, so that you can carry that momentum and that love and that care throughout the relationship. And so when you have those moments where, you bump heads, or you find yourself in a pothole, you know how to get out of it, because you have something strong enough to hold you and to push you both out of it. That love is thick. That love is strong. So it'll help you through those rough times. People don't realize that once you say I do, things change. You get to see this person for who they really are, and you actually look at yourself in the mirror, because now it's not the issue is not usually with them, it's the issues with you. because you begin to see yourself in the mirror. You look at her and you're like, man, now I see where my faults are. And now you have to learn how to navigate through the relationship looking at your faults all day. Like, man, I didn't know I do that, because they see you every day. They see your private life. They see what you do. Now you have to see what you do. You see your private life. You see the ways that, can cause disruption in the relationship or in life. And now you're like, man, I gotta move through this. Oh man, I didn't know this about myself. Now you see yourself through a mirror, man. You see yourself through a mirror. That's why it's important, man. Like we have a boundary within ourselves, and we do not settle. It gets very difficult when we go through life settling. It's very hard for us to live happy, to live out a purposeful life when we're settling and we're connected to people and to things that are holding us back, that become weights. I don't think that we should be partnered with anybody who's become a weight. Our partner's supposed to help lift those weights. And we're supposed to give those things to God. Let me lift that off you. Let me give it to God. Let me pray for you. Let me give it to God. No one should just be a weight. You don't want to be in a relationship where you're just carrying folks 24/7. But you always want to be in a relationship where you both are carrying each other through love, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's all I have to say today. Is that don't settle. Have a standard. Have a boundary that you set for yourself, a boundary you set for others, so that you can live a healthy life. And that's all I'm about. I'm all about others learning how to live healthily, a God-fearing life where God can come in and flow. Again, like I've said before, He's a flow God. God flows. And if there's anything that's forced, then it's probably not God. If anybody has to force you to marry them, it's probably not God. Nobody want to be forced into marriage. Nobody want to be forced to be with somebody. Nobody want to be forced. You know what I'm saying? It has to flow. I've seen too many marriages die because the one person forced the other to be with them. If they don't want to be with you, don't want to be with you, move on. Don't force anybody to be with you. Don't allow someone to force you where you feel like, man, I need a ring. I think a lot of women say that I need a ring from him. He gonna have to give me a ring. If he don't give me a ring, then I'm out. But then you gonna be out. If he ain't give you the ring by now, it's 3 years. Go on. Bye. Leave. Find something else. Work on you until he gets some stuff together. Don't continue to settle and stay in something. Stay in a relationship where you feel that you're worth a ring. You're worth, being committed to. And that person doesn't see that value. You don't see your value. Doesn't see that your worth in that. Then you probably should move on until he's ready. If I didn't say move on and wait for him. Move on with your life, and until he's ready, he'll let you know that he wants to be with you full time. He wants to stay committed to you. Again, a man who has a hard time with commitment usually have a hard time with valuing themselves. So many men have to work on valuing themselves, seeing themselves as worth something, in order for them to value what they hold, to commit to the thing that they have in their hand. And so we have to realize that, man. Don't settle, and stop forcing people to be with you. It's not healthy. It ain't gonna help you. It's not. I'm just letting you know, it ain't gonna help you. But I pray this episode is good to you. I just want to get some stuff off my chest and just talk about certain things. But yeah, don't settle. Have a boundary. Set a standard, and you should be good. All right. Until next time. Till next week. I'll holler at y'all in a minute. Peace. Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go.